Was worship through fire, such as in yagnas, the original primary method of worship done by prehistoric humans? Given that prehistoric humans would virtually always have a campfire burning in or near their places of residence, homes, but construction of large idols would require more effort, and construction of artistically sculpted metal idols took off on a large scale only recently in human history. So, was worship through fire the original primary method of worship done by prehistoric humans? Well, actually, no. Fire worship, we don't find evidence of fire worship in ancient human archaeological evidence, evidence from of ancient humans. So, what is the evidence of religion that we find when it comes to ancient humans? We find burial goods. So when a human being, a deceased dead person has been buried, you find that that body has been buried with various goods. If it's a warrior, it will be a sword. Maybe it will be some shells. Maybe it will be some valuable items. So items that are valuable in the real world, but you are burying with that person. Why bury it with a dead person when you can actually use it and it's valuable to you, but you still bury it with the person, which means that you are taking something that's precious, valuable, and you are burying it forever, which means that you assign a tremendous amount of value to that person who has been buried. Maybe you loved that person. Maybe it's broken your heart that person died. And maybe you want that person to enjoy whatever you're burying with him or her in their afterlife, which is obviously a religious concept, right? Religious or spiritual concept. So you find human burials with grave goods that date back hundreds, not hundreds of thousands of years, maybe up to 100,000 years. Then you have pigments, ochre, red ochre that you find on people's faces, on skulls and all. Which obviously, once again, why would you, when you bury somebody, put red ochre pigment on their faces and bodies? Maybe clearly it will have some kind of religious or spiritual significance. Maybe red ochre was auspicious or something. Maybe it will help ease their path in the afterlife or whatever. Then you will find even Neanderthal burials. If you study the soil around the skeleton that's buried, you'll find pollen. Pollen comes from flowers. So people buried with flowers. I mean, it's such a touching and emotional thing, right? You bury a person with flowers. So you find all these things, and then you find cave art, cave painting, and all with figures that with symbolism that could signify religion of some kind. What else? You find these little, what they call Venus statuettes, female figures that again could have some religious or whatever connotations and whatnot. So these are the kind of archaeological artifacts and evidences that we find of religious and spiritual practices and behavior. Cave art, wall art, rock art, statuettes, figurines, burial goods, burial pigments, flowers in burials, and so on. This is what we find in the archaeological record as evidence of spiritual and religious practices and beliefs. Okay? We find campfires and whatnot, but we never find campfires and other evidence of fire which seems to have any religious significance. We find it, as something that was used for cooking or whatever, or for warmth, but you never find anything that indicates any special religious significance. Typically in Hinduism, we have the Vedic falcon shaped fire altar in which we do the yagna, right? That is a very specific way of constructing a fire, and you will see all kinds of offerings that are offered in there. You don't find any of that in ancient archaeological evidence. So looks like fire worship was something specific to the Aryan people, to the Indians and the Iranians. Doesn't look like it was there anywhere else in the world. So in yajnas, what we have is a pantheon of the gods, the Vedic gods. And who is the messenger of the Vedic gods? It's Agni. So if you want to offer offerings to the Vedic gods, you have to offer it to Agni. Agni is the messenger, the witness of the gods. And whatever you offer to Agni, Agni will take it to the gods. And that's a concept you even have in Zoroastrianism, which came after Hinduism, when there was a change, cultural, religious change in Persia. Right? But they call it the yasna. We call it yajna, they call it yasna. But it's the same thing. They also have the same thing. So fire worship seems to be a practice that the Arya people developed. It wasn't there before us. Okay.